Alright, so I didn't expect to do a documentary review. I've done reviews on documentaries before, but now I'm back into that scene to do a review for Thin Blue Lines. Now this is going to be a short documentary because, Randall Dale Adams was given a death sentence for the death of a policeman from Dallas. I don't know why he's asking me. I'm trying to do a review here. So, there was a guy. Yeah, so I'm gonna try to get this review out of the way. It's gonna be a short review, by the way. Please excuse me. It's a review for Randall Dale Adams. Was a guy who's accepted a car ride from a guy named David Harris, who was driving a stolen vehicle, by the way. And when Robert Wood was shot, after he was pulling over a car to check the headlines, but when he shot and lost his life, Randall Adams the jury believes he was the killer, but he was framed apparently because Errol Morris goes into detail. As this documentary provides the truth of what happened, as this documentary goes through the hearings and the witnessing, misleading stuff that did not happen. Sorry. So basically, the guy was being framed. Like the teenager was at the time was saying he the guy thought that the Randall was the one who shot the man. But the jury thought that he killed him. But apparently that was not the case when I read the say. But anyways, the documentary reveals secrets. I mean, one of the critically acclaimed documentaries. This documentary talks about how the purpose of this. Well, anyways, this is actually a great documentary to look at. Yes, Randall Dale was framed for. He was given the death sentence. He was sentenced to lethal injection for the death of the policeman, but his sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. But that was overturned because he was innocent. Compensation, he didn't get it within his time in jail. But I believe that he was innocent because the guy, I think the culprit who stole that vehicle did, but there were some unanswered clues. But the guy was actually the individual who thought he shot the officer. Nope. So there was evidence that the guy was innocent. Yes, he was clear. There was also a lawsuit. I'm sorry for Young, there was also a lawsuit made against Errol Morris apparently, but Randall Adams never sued him, apparently, because a loss over the about the cat story, But this documentary is pretty easy. Was pretty easy to understand. I mean, to understand what was going on. So the documentary, it's very clever to see this documentary go into details about what went wrong and bring out the truth of what really happened. So, not much. David Harris was executed by lethal injection for some other murder. And he appears in this documentary along with the guy who was framed. I thought Errol Morris did pretty well with this documentary and going through and finding secrets about what actually happened. Because yes, it's Randall Day Adams was innocent of the murder that he did not make. He did not commit. When it comes to, well, this is actually supposed to be a Miramax movie, but it was released on DVD by Miramax. Not sure why Miramax, I'm not sure why NGM. So, it's like a not conventional, but it's not a feature-length vision of those 16 seconds. But glad Randall Diaz was rescued from the death row in the prison system in Texas. Because Texas at the time was doing lethal injection, but Randall Diaz being spared the death sentence was actually the right call, and overturning his conviction was also wise because he was not guilty wasn't the culprit, to say the least. And about the other film from the 80s was him blurring the boundaries between what was real, what was going on, but making this as a viable entertainment, yes. I'm actually quite glad the documentary went through sometimes how much of a positive impact helping out a guy who was being framed for something he didn't do and helping him being freed from prison. This documentary was one of the most important ones out there. The fact is, can't blame Aaron Morris for helping out, for trying to get the guy set free from jail. I don't think he was ever. I don't think the guy has ever went back to prison ever since he was released. This one, sometimes I thought, sometimes, but I really like where this documentary was going. Being able to help a man get set free from prison. An innocent man. Because by the look of this, every critic who reviewed this movie were were positive with the review. Despite the audience score being at 90%, this documentary is one of the most important ones out there. And also helping Randall Day Adams being released from prison was also a beautiful thing. Because let's just say that was actually the right call. I just thought Errol Morris exposing the truth of the case was really, really gave a positive impact by overturning the guy's conviction. But the fact that Randall Day Adams didn't get any compensation after his time in prison was uncalled for, but it was pretty weird, to say the least. Not getting anything from that. just a thing. I know it's one. That's the only eyebrow raising moment. But let's just say the documentary had let's just say the documentary did help a man, an innocent man, get freed from prison after he was roughly sentenced to death. Everybody faces false claims about something they didn't do, you know. And for a man like him to be framed for murder, well, sometimes there's gonna be other people who are gonna be framed for murder that they did not commit, because But with this documentary exposing the truth about the Randall Downs case, I'm pretty sure that this documentary did a solid job of making sure that Randall Downs was innocent. And this documentary was one of the most pop. Not sure if this is a controversial one, but it was going to be up for best, considered to be nominated for best documentary, but it didn't even. Nothing. Well, the documentary was never going to be. That's the one snub about the movie because despite the critical acclaim from the critics, this documentary is still an award-winning documentary. It was controversial among film critics because they felt that reenactment had no place in documentary format. So this was the reason why it was not given a nomination at the Oscars. But apparently, this documentary still is pretty entertaining. Still pretty good to sit through. If you like documentaries, if you're into documentaries, this one will be for you. I'm gonna give The Thin Blue Line a 5 out of 5 for this, because yes, this documentary did help an innocent man get released from prison for a murder that he did not commit. And of course, during the aftermath, he was ordered released as a result of the hearing in 1989. He ended up being in a legal battle with the director of this documentary because of concerning rights of his story, but the matter was set out of court, and he was able to get sole use of anything written or made on the subject of his life. He also said Mr. Morris felt he had the exclusive right to his life, my life story. Of course, he did not sue the director for any. Yeah, of course, he did not sue the director of this movie for any money or percentage of this film because of how the media would paint that. The director said when he got out, he became very angry at the fact that he signed a release-giving rights to his story, of course, according to unquote. Trying to quote what he's saying. He doesn't even understand what it was like to be in prison that long for something you didn't do. Common sense. Like, getting no payment from the state of Texas is just bizarre. Had he been wrongfully found guilty under today's law in Texas, he would have been received. He would have gotten 80,000 for each year of incarceration. But since he was released, the case was dismissed, and he was pardoned. But getting no payment from Texas after his release. So, but anyways, he would eventually work as an anti-death penalty activist. He did pass away in Ohio, which the state that he was born in, after leaving Texas. But anyways, that'll be it for my review for The Thin Blue Line. Yeah, like I said, this is actually one of those important documentaries, and the fact that this documentary helped an innocent man be released from prison was also quite something. But I give Harold Morris credit for making a documentary that would help someone get released from prison. Anyways, the fact that he was released from prison is saying something. Because definitely, yeah, not everybody. People don't understand why innocent people get thrown in prison for something they did not do. But with that being said, I will be doing more movie reviews until in January. So stay tuned for more. This was the first time I've reviewed a documentary until 26. However, there are more documentaries on their way, but you never know which ones will be next. But I will get back to actual more movies in the meantime. So stay tuned for more reviews.